Hey folks, this is Frags here. So there's been quite a few of you who have been braving the dark and twisted lands of Sanctuary in Diablo 4 Season 1 content, and I have been doing so myself, but with less than optimal experience. I know there was this whole kerfuffle about the now infamous Season 1 patch. That was a rather weird decision by Blizzard, but I'm not going to touch on that in this video. My problem with Diablo 4 has less to do with that patch than, well, the game itself. I gotta be honest with you, playing Diablo 4 just gave me this itch, this desire to want to hop back into Grim Dawn, a game which is a favorite of mine. I mean, Diablo 4's abysmal performance for me doesn't really help its case. Maybe by the time this video is out, perhaps Blizzard would have solved these performance issues. I'm sure they would actually, but I'd like to take a look at Grim Dawn and see where it does well and where Diablo 4 falters a little, or maybe much, depending on who you ask. Sure, the first major difference is that Grim Dawn is a single player experience, that's it. It doesn't require a network connection with a whole world lagging down your entire game, right? For Diablo 4, the game is designed with online in mind. As I mentioned in a previous video, the whole deal about level scaling in Day 4 is primarily because it's an online game. So Grim Dawn does have an online mode with the Crucible DLC, which is something that's separate from the main game. I mean, it's not part of the main quest, right? Which is the main design philosophy difference with Diablo 4, which has multiplayer built right into the main game experience. The funny thing with the whole level scaling thing is that I was done with Diablo 4, the main campaign, by the time I hit level 46-ish. That's not the case with Grim Dawn. You see, I'm not even close to being done with the main campaign. There's still a lot more lore and quests to actually uncover and solve. Just more things to learn about Cairn or Karn. I'm not exactly sure how you actually pronounce the name of the world in Grim Dawn. Since some areas were just that tough, there was a necessity to grind and level up to be ready to take on a particular zone. Now this is a big point. Diablo 4 is always pushing the player to complete the campaign as quickly as possible and move on to the end game. I felt this was how the community also approached the game, and even incentivized by Blizzard with things like the Race to 100 challenge to have their names on the Lilith statue. I think this is a bit of a pity because I really do think the story in Diablo 4 was pretty good, at least better than Diablo 3. And when it's over, Diablo 4 becomes a grind. I mean, when people say it's a grind, like they really mean it's a grind. You can argue that grind is part of how the game was designed, but I think grind could have been done better. Action RPGs should be about fun options to make your characters even more powerful, right? In Grim Dawn, that's putting points to unlock access to new skills or making your current skill more powerful. Testing and trying out new ways to play your class without the game punishing you, because in Grim Dawn, they make this relatively easy and cheap. And then you have this whole devotion system, right, which is kind of like the Paragon board, but it's available from the very beginning of the game, and you get points to put into this by doing stuff in the game world. So there's like incentive for you to get out there and clear out these corrupted shrines that would give you these devotion points. It's not about just arbitrarily giving you XP to level up, so there's a lot of depth here in Grim Dawn. There's immense amounts of freedom and direction you can take your character. Like, you can pick a second class at level 10, like opening up a whole new skill tree to mix and match your heroes. Yes, a dual class system in an action RPG? I thought that would be unheard of in this genre, you know? Like, that's really awesome, and that's what we got with Grim Dawn. In my playthrough, I'm maxing out my Demolitionist, which is kind of like a range shootery guy, before putting out a point into my Occultist skill tree, which is kind of like a sorcerer kind of character, I guess. I just want to see the cool, powerful skills earlier in the game rather than dividing it across two trees. Resistances are super important in Grim Dawn. Different enemies from different areas do different type of damages and are even more resistant to certain damage types. So making your build stronger for that specific area or just overall could be a life or death thing. Small improvements over time lead to a big power curve later in the game. In fact, it is necessary to take note about how your stats are being affected if you want to play the game, which includes the main campaign as well, not just the end game, you know, in Grim Dawn. Okay, hold it. If you like this video, don't forget to smash that like button and just poke that subscribe button a little. Once will do. I delve into strategy games like Total War and sometimes get into RPGs. I also talk about the latest gaming industry news that really matters. So go on, give this humble little channel a sub. It helps us out a lot. Thank you so much, and now back to the video. So Grim Dawn will punish you with boss battles that require more preparation than just waltzing into them, right? This is especially true once you hit level 40-ish. Heck, I even lost at lower levels for underestimating the boss powers. A little bit about these boss battles. This is one part I think Diablo 4 gets right, at least in comparison to Grim Dawn. The boss battles in Grim Dawn are purely, I am more powerful than you with a few abilities that will surprise you, like the haste ability many bosses use when you are a ranged character. So unlike Diablo 4, you can use your gameplay skills, like actual skillful control with your mouse and keyboard, you know, like you will be tasked to do that. You need to be really quick with your APMs, you know, to defeat bosses. Which gets to my next point. Combat is another aspect that Diablo 4 absolutely dominates any of its competition. It feels chunky, meaty, like there's real weight to your hits. Compared to Grim Dawn, which is really a battle of stats and your resistances, combat is like a slower dance, like a waltz. Diablo 4 is like a fast-paced breakdance. It really puts the action in the RPG. I can't emphasize this enough. Perhaps some would argue to the detriment of the RPG side of things. Now, for a few more smaller things that I really like in Grim Dawn. First, it has a loot filter. I don't really need to say much about this. Once you get up to a certain level, you just don't want to see the common items being highlighted. So it just makes the whole flow of the game faster. Although I do admit I still do stop after every battle to check higher tier loot that dropped. At least I can compare them without needing to put them in my inventory. One criticism of Diablo 4's inventory system is the shared stash space between jewels and weapons and armors. So a simple fix which somehow Blizzard hasn't fixed yet. Grim Dawn gives a ton of stash space. However, with a caveat, it still uses the system of different items have different sizes, hence taking up more or less space in your inventory. This leads to the annoyance of like having to manage your inventory, and essentially devolves into a inventory management sorting minigame. Thankfully, there is an auto sort function. I have to side with Diablo 4 on this. I personally prefer that all items just take up one slot. It's an action RPG, you're gonna be picking up a lot of loot, so don't give me the hassle of actually needing to fit the stuff into your inventory. I totally get it. Diablo 4 was designed for a certain mass appeal to the type of gamer that doesn't really care about story as much, because the real game starts at the end of that. The rush to get to level 100 in hardcore, or whatever it is, the bragging rights basically of having an uber ultimate character or hero, you know, make up for all that grind, that utter meaningless grind for uber uniques that you will never even get. Diablo 4 is really a great action game distilled from an action RPG. It does a superb job of getting that visceral feel of combat right, but for the role player who's still thinking about customizing your class, resistances, perfecting your build for a fun playthrough, Diablo 4 isn't really made for you. And I think that's how I would define these two action RPGs. Diablo 4 is the more action-oriented one, and Grim Dawn is the more RPG-oriented title. One isn't exactly better than the other, is seen from its own perspectives, and I think in the end of the day it all depends on what you like. Both games win in their own right. I know that's a bit of a cop-out. Hey, but this video is about my take on the games, right? So I shall declare Grim Dawn as my winner, and I'm really looking forward to what they have in store, because Crate Entertainment, just like Blizzard, has been supporting Grim Dawn for a long ass time now. After 7 years since its release, like there's a patch 1.2 being worked on right now, and who knows, maybe more. So what's your favorite action RPG? Are you playing the new seasonal content in Diablo 4, or have you dropped off the game? Tell me in the comments. This is Frag signing off. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Taste the power of